Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, we're taking my Friday look at the Brexit media on the reporting around the battle lines being drawn between Maroš Šefčovič of the EU Commission and Liz Truss, who's taken over the Brexit brief from David Frost after he ran away. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, David Frost resigned, Boris Johnson gave the Brexit brief to Liz Truss, and now Truss has once again threatened to trigger Article 16 if she doesn't get her way. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the focus and language used in three Brexit papers, the Daily Mail, the Daily Express and the Daily Telegraph, and look at not just what they said, but what they didn't say. So the Daily Mail first, and I just want to point out one thing that's untrue right under the headline. They say that Liz Truss has said that Britain's position on the Northern Ireland Protocol has not changed. In actual fact, there haven't been two consecutive months in 2021 where it was ever the same. Indeed, the second she took over the brief from Frost, her statement exposed a huge change from Frost saying there should be no role for the European Court of Justice in Northern Ireland to Truss saying that it should not be the final arbiter. Now, I've said before, this lays the groundwork for a fudge to the issue later, if the government decides that it wants to fudge it. But I will repeat that for me, the big unknown in all of this is what will Conservative MPs accept? What do they think is achievable? Obviously, the protocol cannot be scrapped without also scrapping the trade and cooperation agreement. Now, there are some Conservative MPs who want that. They wanted a no deal all along, but couldn't get it through Parliament. So you may think, well, they would like that outcome. Here's the thing, though. All that's really going to do is to accelerate the reunification of Ireland. Do they also want that? Some of them may also want that, it has to be said. However, this would be opposed by the majority of Conservative MPs, even the current lot. The damage it would do to every economy in the land is too much. So how does our Brexit media assess the standoff between the EU and the UK on this matter? The Daily Mail quotes Truss saying that goods need to flow freely between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. She says that if this doesn't happen, she remains prepared to trigger Article 16. Obviously, this won't happen. If you want goods to flow freely between one place and another, then those two places need to be inside the same customs area at least. I don't know how many times experts have had to point this out. We chose to have different customs arrangements, which creates a customs border. We also choosing at some point to have different standards, which will mean the standards border. You know, there was a passage in this article where it quoted one of her supporters saying how great a negotiator she is, you know, because all those trade deals, they said it was impossible and look what she's done, without mentioning that they are all copy-pasted EU trade deals, with the exception of Australia and Japan, which represent trade reduction deals for us. But what the Mail is doing is kicking the can down the road, like the government. They are setting out some of the differences in position. They're nailing Truss to the mast of free trading goods because they're making it clear that Truss, and they've used it as a quote, Truss has said there must be free movement of goods between Britain and Northern Ireland. Right? And that means in both directions. And they're building up her credentials as a tough negotiator. Therefore, they're raising expectations of its readers that Truss is going to find a way through. That's the implication. It's very clear. We can expect a major breakthrough from Truss, and probably very soon. In reality, one of three things will happen. First, nothing at all. Truss will do what Frost did, spend 6 months threatening to trigger Article 16, while the EU say that it will cost us our trade and cooperation agreement. All the time there will be the background noise from the various branches of the US government warning of the consequences from them. That's not a great outcome for Liz Truss if she wants to become the next Prime Minister, because that would represent a failure. The second outcome is that the fudge is applied. A separate body is set up to deal with the disputes, as will happen anyway. You know, it will have to apply the European Court of Justice's interpretation of EU law, of course, but it would be a separate body so the British government can claim that they've done what they said they were going to do. However, it will still be attacked in some quarters because what you're not going to get is that free trade of goods between Britain and Northern Ireland in both directions. So that will still represent a failure. The third outcome is the nuclear option. Some conjunction of political outcomes culminates in both Johnson and Truss being trapped in their current position. Johnson is about to be forced out and he doesn't want to. Truss's failures over the Northern Ireland Protocol see Sunak or some other challenger being more likely to become the next leader, so they trigger Article 16 in desperation. Now, this outcome doesn't seem too likely as it is not a gamble. The consequences are universally bad, politically and economically. So the Mail is basically setting Truss up for an almighty fall. So then we go on to the Express. Now, the Express article is just a rage against the EU. It doesn't even bother to analyse the situation and just notes that the EU has an issue with both the UK and Switzerland, not wanting to follow its rules right now. It suggests that because the EU has an issue with two countries at once, that actually maybe it's just the EU that's at fault here, as if right and wrong were just an issue of numbers. If two naughty children are both punished for not following the rules, it must be the parent or the teacher that is at fault because they are outnumbered. That seems to be the thinking of the Express. Although, if you carry this thinking on, the EU comprises 27 countries. So doesn't that still put them in the large majority? Not entirely sure the Express is really thinking through its reasoning, if I'm honest. But then there's the Telegraph. Less reactionary, but no less manipulative in its narrative. The first half of the article, it's a bit like the Daily Mail, it just sets out, it's a series of statements of fact, sets out the positions of each side without bothering to analyse anything, without sort of pointing out what is and what is not legally possible. But it still reveals its bias when explaining the source of friction between Britain and Northern Ireland. It says, and I quote, "To keep the Irish land border open, Northern Ireland follows around 300 EU single market rules, creating trade friction in the Irish Sea." This isn't strictly the case. Now, it's an objectively true statement, but misleading. Northern Ireland also followed those same rules in 2020, but there was no trade friction in the Irish Sea. So it wasn't Northern Ireland following these rules that created the friction, but Britain not following the rules. As I've already said, the source of friction is that there are different market rules in Northern Ireland as compared to Great Britain. The only way to remove trade friction is to harmonise trade rules. That's all there really is to it. The Telegraph did mention the proposals by the EU which would cut customs paperwork by up to 80% on what it calls some goods, but as that includes food and agricultural products, it's arguably the most important goods. So those are what the three main pro-Brexit media outlets have to say. And I'll tell you what I found interesting, is what none of them had to say. See, the British press are not usually shy about telling the government what to do. It doesn't matter what that press is, left wing, right wing, whatever, it doesn't matter. They all have a little message in there, an implication, sometimes an outright statement about what should be done. Indeed, I read another article in the Telegraph yesterday, which was telling Johnson what to do about COVID. In fact, the whole government, which was essentially nothing at all. The lies used in the author's reasoning were chilling. But on the subject of the Northern Ireland Protocol, not one of these three papers, all of whom approach the story differently, and all of whom on most subjects are not shy about offering their opinion, not one of them had any advice. The Daily Express raged at the EU. But it didn't seem to be calling for Truss to trigger Article 16 and be done with it. The Daily Mail mostly presented a he said, she said, but without any advice either. Same from the Telegraph. Now, I find that curious. But then what could they advise? What could they say the government should do? If they advise just taking the EU's offer and drawing a line under the whole thing, then you allow Northern Ireland's superior economic performance post-Brexit to highlight just how damaging being on this side of the Brexit border is. Also difficult to argue because the protocol represents a part of the UK following EU rules without any say in them. Of course, we follow the most restrictive EU rules in Britain because single market rules are only designed to ensure a level playing field for trade. Third country EU rules, however, which is what Britain has to follow, are designed to make it difficult to trade and ensuring a competitive advantage for members of the single market. It's the third country EU rules that ensure the not at all level playing field. So urging the government to accept the protocol is tricky. But it's also tough to urge for the unilateral removal of aspects of the protocol, even for the normally fairly belligerent Express. They'd then have to explain what we will do about losing the trade and cooperation agreement. Businesses think it's bad with the Brexit trade barriers that are being erected all the time. They want to try full-blown WTO trade terms, especially in the middle of a global pandemic. Absolute insanity. And worse still, what if the government actually did it? See, it's one thing for papers to say, oh, we should do this, we should do this, we should do that. If they're fairly sure no one will ever do it, so they'll never be called out on it. What if they did? I said last month, when it genuinely looked like the government might trigger Article 16, it really did. They obviously had it in their heads that the EU ultimately wouldn't do anything about it. Then the EU said, right, well, you can say goodbye to the Trade and Cooperation Agreement then. And the British government basically went, what? What? But if you're not going to honour the protocol, we're going to scrap the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. Oh, right. Oh, dear. You know, at that time, I said, the likes of the Express and the Mail seemed to be dialing down their rhetoric. When it looked like what they had been calling for was about to happen, they were thinking, hey, we don't really want to be responsible for the consequences of this. You know, I thought at the time, they didn't want to be seen to be supporting what they knew would be a complete disaster. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.